This is the Neoliberal Round Podcast.
Just the biting. Welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal Round Podcast. I'm Renaldo McKenzie. I was able to gather some information from John Anthony Castro. I met with him. I was able to speak with him, and I am working on publishing an article. The article will be published later, entitled "John Anthony Castro Continues to Fight for Freedom, Appeals to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, but also to international bodies." Former Republican presidential candidate says he is a political prisoner as legal battle enters new phase. And this was written by me, Renaldo McKenzie. It is available in the Neoliberal at theneoliberal.com. This is the story. John Anthony Castro, the former Republican presidential candidate, tax attorny, and founder of AI Tax, says he is refusing to surrender despite being incarcerated on federal tax-related convictions that he insists were politically motivated. Castro first gained national attention after filing lawsuits seeking to remove Donald Trump from state ballots under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, arguing that Donald Trump's conduct surrounding January 6 disqualified him from holding federal office. His legal challenge made him one of Trump's most visible Republican critics during the presidential campaign. Today, Castro remains in federal prison while continuing an aggressive legal campaign that now includes appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court, petitions to the United Nations, and filings before the International Criminal Court, the ICC. Of course, speaking with me at the Neoliberal, Castro maintained that he has exhausted every available avenue in the lower courts and believes his case now rests in the hand of God. According to John Castro, "I've dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's," Castro said. "I've done my part. Now I know it's in God's hands." On this, as it relates to the Supreme Court appeal, according to Castro, the U.S. Court of Appeals recently rejected his latest argument, prompting him to prepare a petition for rehearing before moving forward with a petition for a writ of certiorari with a rehearing before moving forward with a petition for a writ of certiorari, asking the U.S. Supreme Court to hear his case. Castro argues that each time he develops a new legal strategy challenging what he describes as his unlawful incarceration, another legal obstacle emerges. According to Castro, and I quote, "They always find something to keep me here," he said. As it relates to allegations of prosecutorial misconduct, throughout the interview, Castro reiterated allegations that federal prosecutors improperly withheld evidence and entered into undisclosed agreements with witnesses. He pointed to what he described as acknowledgments by the Fifth Circuit that immunity agreements existed with a government witness. Castro argues that those agreements were significant because they demonstrated possible motive and bias rather than merely affecting the witness's credibility. According to John Castro, courts have incorrectly characterized the evidence as merely cumulative impeachment evidence. The courts have incorrectly characterized the evidence as merely cumulative impeachment evidence. They admitted, according to Castro, there was a deal, Castro said. Everybody's turning a blind eye to the fact that they gave immunity to a criminal to testify against me, end of quote. These are Castro's characterizations of the proceedings. The government has maintained the validity of his conviction, and the appellate court ultimately declined to grant him relief. As it relates to claims of continued smear campaign. Now, Castro and his team also alleged that efforts to damage his reputation have continued while he remains incarcerated. He described a recent incident in which his wife discovered what he says was a fake social media account, claiming that Castro had failed to pay a campaign photographer. Castro denied the allegation, stating that the individual named had never worked for his campaign and that his only campaign photographer was Aaron Farouche. According to Castro, such posts are intended to influence public perception by creating false narratives online. According to Castro, and I quote, they are planting seeds, end quote. He continues by saying, and I quote, 2 years after convicting me, somebody is still putting in effort to convince the public that I'm a bad person, end quote. The Neoliberal has not independently verified Castro's allegations regarding the social media account. Now, as it relates to appeal to the United Nations, Castro said he and his wife recently submitted a petition to the UN, to the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, WGAD, requesting intervention. The working group reviews claims alleging unlawful or politically motivated detention around the world. Castro acknowledged that he does not know whether the UN will intervene, but believes submitting the petition was necessary. According to John Castro, and I quote, all I know is that we submitted it. And he is going to email me a copy of the document. I'm waiting on him to send it to my email. As it relates to his submission to the International Criminal Court referral, as it relates to the ICC referral, Castro also confirmed that he has submitted what he describes as a criminal referral to the International Criminal Court, the ICC. He alleges that recent actions taken by the Trump administration against various political opponents, public officials, professors, and activists demonstrate a broader pattern of politically motivated retaliation. Among those examples, Castro referenced the deportation and prosecution of an immigrant rights activist in El Salvador, arguing that the incident may provide a basis for ICC jurisdiction because El Salvador is a state party to the Roman statute, or to the Rome statute, to the ICC. These allegations have not been adjudicated by the ICC. Now, as it relates to frustration with Republican leadership, because we talked about that, despite having run as a Republican presidential candidate, and I asked him pointedly whether or not he's getting support from the GOP. He says Castro expressed little confidence that the Republican Party or the Justice Department would intervene on his behalf. Instead, he says he has filed 33 Freedom of Information Act, the FOIA, requests seeking records he believes could support his claims. Again, he says he has filed 33 Freedom of Information Act Information Act requests seeking records he believes could support his. Again, Instead, he says he has filed 33 Freedom of Information Act requests seeking records he believes could support his claims. According to John Castro, I cast a large net. If there's something out there, I'm going to find it. On the issue of faith amid incarceration, throughout the conversation, Castro repeatedly returned to his Christian faith as the source of his perseverance. Drawing comparisons to the Apostle Paul, writing from prison, Castro said, Scripture reminds him that suffering does not have the final word. According to Castro, and I quote, if I hadn't read the Bible, I'd be a lot more discouraged, end quote. He said his confidence rests not in immediate legal success, but in his belief that, and I quote, my name will be cleared one day. And a prayer for justice. At the conclusion of the interview, I prayed with Castro, asking God to strengthen him during his incarceration and to endure that justice, and to ensure that justice ultimately prevails. I pray for Castro's family, for wisdom among the judges who may eventually hear the case, and that the truth will come to bear regarding the allegations Castro has raised. Invoking the biblical account of Daniel in the lion's den, I pray that God would sustain Castro through what he described as a difficult season until he has the opportunity to fully tell his story. And what's the road ahead for John Castro? What's the road looking like for John Castro? Castro says his next legal step, and I asked him what does the road ahead looks like? What does he plan to do next? He says his next legal step is a petition asking the U.S. Supreme Court to review his conviction after exhausting relief in the Fifth Circuit. Whether the court agrees to hear the case remains uncertain. In the meantime, Castro continues pursuing domestic and international legal avenues while maintaining that he is not merely a federal inmate, but a political prisoner whose prosecution was intended to silence one of Donald Trump's Republican challengers. Now, those allegations remain disputed, and the federal conviction remains in effect unless overturned by a higher court. Of course, his next step is to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Nevertheless, Castro says he remains steadfast. According to Castro, and I end with this, and I quote, I have peace. I know it's going to work out. I know my name will be cleared one day, end quote. I'm Renaldo McKenzie of the Neoliberal Round Podcast. And of course, I did reach out to John Castro and I spoke with him. This story will be made available in the Neoliberal Round at the Neoliberal Journals at neoliberal.com. It also will be available in the Neoliberal Post at renaldocmckenzie.com. I will also share the article as an op-ed in the Philadelphia Inquirer if they would publish it, and the Jamaica Gleaner. Email us at info@theneoliberal.com. Follow me on Instagram, Renaldo McKenzie, or in Facebook, at Twitter, Renaldo McKenzie, or the Neoliberal Co on Twitter. Call us at 445-260-9198. Walk good.